Hello everybody and welcome back to the next video. In this video we're going to talk about how to actually set up our project and get coding. So all of our references and everything that we set up here we're going to be using. So when we go out to GitHub, there is various managers that we've made. In this case I'm going to use the Piece Manager mod template. You can go out to one of my videos that will describe exactly how to utilize my templates correctly. So you can go to YouTube and jump to my channel in this case, and it is 13 days ago, how to effectively use my mod templates. You'll be able to find that on my channel. So in my case, I'm going to use the Piece Manager mod template for sake of speed and time. I've already got this installed, of course, and set up. So if you watch that other video, come back, go to that video, and then come back to this one. It will tell you how to use this. Okay, so I keep the Piece Manager up to date. And Piece Manager allows us to quickly bring in piece items, set up our requirements, and pull it into the game. Okay, so I don't need to clone it and set this up. I've already got it installed, but you could go to the Piece Manager mod template and scroll through and figure out how to use it. Blackson, which is Blackson Boop Location Manager here. So she's got Location Manager, she's got various other managers. So Skill Manager, Item Manager. We're all making managers to try and make things easy. So you can click on her repositories and scroll through and try to find them. So Location Manager, Creature Manager, Item Manager. So she's got more managers than me. I only have a Status Effect Manager and a Piece Manager, but I do have templates for every single one of her managers. So it sets up the project for you: Item Manager, Skill, Location, Status Effect, Piece, and Creature. So all of those projects can be set up very quickly if you follow the previous video on how to actually use my templates effectively. So I'm going to use one of my templates right now. I'm going to start out in Writer, and then I'll show you how to do the exact same thing in Visual Studio once it gets installed. So we are going to New Solution this. And down in Writer, we'll see Item Manager, Piece Manager, Creature Manager, and Skill. So when I say item or piece or creature or skill, that kind of directly relates to the scripts that are on the item. So this has a piece script, or it is a building piece. So anything that you can build with the hammer typically has this script attached. So that's what this is going to look into. That's what we're going to build. Door scripts and stuff like that doesn't matter. Item drop scripts are on swords or hammers or things like that. That's what you would use the Item Manager for. And creatures would be, of course, creatures. Skills would be skills. So we are going to set this up with the Piece Manager mod template. And I'm going to call this tutorial door mod. Okay. And I typically like mine in the same directory, and I'm going to click create. So if you set up your references on your main drive, like I have them in the publicized assemblies folder and BepInEx is installed there, you shouldn't see any red. This should automatically set itself up for you. Okay. So version handshake, that is between the server and the client. This is a class that will kick them from the server if they don't have the mod installed. This is a class that will also make sure that they have the same version as the server. If they defer, it will also kick them from the server. Okay. If you don't want that in your mod, you can right click, edit, and delete. Piece Manager comes in two forms. You can choose to bring it in the classes, so each class that the Piece Manager has to utilize them, which is better because you can actually change it. You can go through and change the code if you need to. It is open source. You do have the ability to do so. The other way is to use it similar to how we use Server Sync. As a DLL, we set up the project using NuGet packages. That is a thing that allows us to basically merge these DLLs into whatever mod we're making. Okay, and that comes from the ilrepack.targets file. In this case, I am not using the DLL, but it says that you can uncomment this and use it. If you choose to use the DLL, you would right-click and delete this folder and say, hey, I don't want to use the classes. Okay, keep in mind it might not conflict, but it is not recommended to use both at the same time. Okay, and the reason why it won't conflict is because the code is essentially the same, so it'll still reference it correctly. So we're going to step through the plugin here in just a minute. I prefer to use Writer, so everything I'm going to do is going to be in Writer. But I will show you very quickly in Visual Studio how to set up the same thing. So in Visual Studio, if you had set up the project templates, which it opened in a different screen for me. So in Visual Studio, you would clone the repository, you'd set it up based on my how to use my templates video, and then you can create a new project. So we're going to create a new project with the template. So recent project templates are going to pop up on the side. If you need to search for them, they'll start to pop up. So Creature Manager Mod Template, Piece Manager Mod Template, all of these, as long as you have them installed, will show. So Piece Manager Mod Template. Next, I want this to be called Tutorial or Tut Door 2, right? Change where it installs, choose whether it's going to be in the same directory or not, and click Next. So in Visual Studio actually gives you the option to pre-change the author name. You can change this to Tut Door Guy or whatever you want to call it and click Create. And I'll show you kind of how it looks in Visual Studio as well. It looks very similar depending on what you're used to. If you're used to code, this should be very simple, but same folder structure. Version Handshake is just here, so you can actually right click, of course, and click Delete instead of Edit Delete. You can read the README, you can go through the plugin, you can reference all of your assemblies and everything however you wish, right? Same thing, IO repack that targets. It's the exact same project, okay? So it's going to be set up the same. Most of everything that I do in Writer, you could do the equivalent in Visual Studio. References. So references in Visual Studio sometimes will not automatically resolve. You may or may not need to pre-build the project or attempt build, even if it fails, for these to not be read. Okay, if they are read, that could mean that you didn't either install things correctly or you've got your Valheim install installed on a completely separate drive than your main drive, in which case you would need to point this to the correct location. So in Visual Studio, you'd right-click, add reference, browse, and you would navigate to wherever that is. Okay, wherever that you have your default install. So like I would go to Valheim old, and go into Valheim data, manage, publicize assemblies, and I would say, oh, there we go, I want that one. Or you can highlight them all and say I want them all, right? So that's how to set these up. Most of the time, if you need to fix any of these references, they're all going to come from the default install of Valheim. So keep that in mind. So just keep in mind what the names are, set them up. Unity Engine Asset Bundles, I'll show you where that's located. That comes from Bepinex. So that comes from the Bepinex stuff that we dragged in. That is going to be not in the Bepinex folder. I know it said it comes with Bepinex, which it does, but it comes in the unstripped corelib folder. So that's where you're going to reference things. You usually need the Unity Engine DLL core, and if you're bringing in an asset bundle, you'll need that at the bare minimum. Okay. So bring all those in. If you're using my template, they're automatically referenced. Asset bundles here, UI, physics, Unity Engine core. All of those should automatically reference. From here on, I'm going to use Writer for everything, and I'll step through the example code. I'll show you what it means. So in Writer, I have mine configured to show me the argument names. You can also hover above whatever it is, and it'll show you, string, asset bundle, file name, prefab name, assets. So folder name equals assets, that's showing right there, just means it defaults to the asset folder. When it defaults to the asset folder, that means that this folder here is going to be referenced. Okay. In this case, I'm referencing a fun ward folder name. So if I don't want it to be called assets and I want it to be called something completely different, you can pass in a third argument here and do a comma and then just whatever your folder name is. In the example below, which is example build piece 2, as I mentioned in the comment here, you can choose to omit the assets folder. You don't have to put it there. It will default to the assets folder. And if you expand that, it says, hey, drop your asset bundle here, or drop it in a custom folder. So I'm not going to do anything special with this door. I'm not material swapping because I did not set up the materials for that. This code is needed. Do not remove this code. But anything that references the material replacer, prefab manager, anything like that. In this case, you can remove it because we need to customize it. We need to make it for our asset. So I'm going to delete all this up to the last build piece before I start making build piece 2. And of course, this is going to explode and error out. I don't need it. All I need is this code. Piece Manager makes it super simple to add things into the game. I'm going to do a separate video on how it adds things into the game and kind of the Valheim know-hows. And the Valheim know-hows are if you wanted to do it yourself. You didn't want to do a Piece Manager. You don't want to do anything like that, right? So kind of the generic things that you'll need to know in order to accomplish it. So the Piece Manager comes in 2 forms. In class form, so you can choose to use the classes. You can copy and paste these straight from the GitHub, or you can go in and make it a DLL. So all the DLLs, in this case, need to be set to copy to output directory. This case is copy if newer. It's all set up for you if you use my templates. So Server Sync and Piece Manager. Piece Manager DLL is currently in the project, but it is not actually referenced. In order to use the DLL, you need to reference it. So same thing that we did in Visual Studio, add reference, add from, navigate to where this project is, and point to the libs folder to the piece DLL. Okay. So I'm not using the DLL, but the template does have it in there. An IL repack.targets, which comes from the IL repack NuGet package, which NuGet packages come from managed NuGet packages. I have this commented out, which means I'm not using it. It's not going to be merged into my code after the fact. All right. So without further ado, let's go ahead and try and pull in our asset bundle into the game. So we've got our code set up, referenced, and kind of ready. So Piece Manager makes it super simple. We need 2 things. We need our asset bundle, and we need to go ahead and configure our asset bundle, and then we need to, afterwards, after the 2 things, go through and configure this. Okay. So to get to your asset bundle, again, if you have Unity still pulled up, or if you know the exact location of where you have it installed, you can jump there very quickly. I am going to, since I still have it open, jump into that folder. I'm going to close Unity because I don't need it anymore. But I'm going to jump out to the Valheim Tut folder, Asset Bundles, Standalone Windows, and right here's my bundle. You can move this if you want, because anytime you tell Asset Bundle Manager or Asset Bundle Browser to rebuild a bundle, it will rebuild the bundle for you and put it here. So I'm going to drag this and I'm going to put it into my asset folder, and it says, hey, you're about to move it. Yep. So doing that actually automatically puts it and shows it in here. If it doesn't show and you chose to use the File Explorer to bring it into the game, right? Or into your project, sorry. You'll need to right-click, add existing item, and I believe it's the same in Visual Studio, but add existing item, which will point to wherever you're telling it to point. In my case, it's going straight to Assets Tutorial Bundle. So the second thing that you need to do to this bundle is right-click, Properties, and change the build action to embedded resource. Okay, and it should be very similar in Visual Studio. Just change it to an embedded resource. That means it's going to be embedded into our DLL, and we need it. So I'm going to keep this open. So asset bundle file name is the first argument in our first build piece, right? So I'm going to call this the Tut Door Bundle, just like it's listed on the left. And then our prefab was the Tut Door, right? And since it is in the assets folder, I don't need this custom folder, so I'm going to delete this. And I'm going to delete my comma, so it becomes happy. And just to confirm, let me jump into here and make sure that this is my actual prefab name. So tutdoor.prefab, all caps, and tutdoor, all caps, right? This must match. If it doesn't match, you'll get an error on startup. So I'm going to call this the tutorial door. And the description of English, of course, you could do, instead of .English, you could do .Bulgarian, Spanish, Chinese, all this stuff that's listed here. I do want mine to be English. .description, .English, you'll change the description of the item. So tutorial or tut things, I don't know. And example piece, which is the variable that we set up, .required items, .add fine wood. I want 20 fine wood, which is the item. Items are used based on the prefab name, or the game object name that we have from an item in the game. Okay, you can download my X-ray vision mod, the NEI mod, anything that really can tell you what these are. You can also look inside of your Unity project, and remember what I told you a prefab name is. You can look inside of that Valheim RIP that has all of Valheim's assets in it and look at it. Figure out exactly what you want here, what the requirements are. Keep in mind, requirements must be item drops. They cannot be build pieces. They can be crafting stations and things like that. So if you wanted to fill in that crafting station that we deleted in Unity, you can do all that in code here. Okay, so required item, Surtling core, 20, false, whatever. Technically, we can build this right now. We can go up to build solution, or do the shortcut, build the solution and pull it in. We're done. We've done everything that we need. Piece Manager made it super simple and is only like 4 things of code, right? But Piece Manager currently does not have the feature, but will potentially be implemented in the future to create the crafting station. So that crafting station that we deleted, let's say you wanted that. We'll do example piece.1 or example piece1 dot prefab dot game object dot get component, right? And it's auto completing, of course, in IntelliSense. And we're going to say we want the piece component, so that script that was in Unity. And then we're going to do dot. Now here is the stuff that Valheim's script is going to reference. We want the crafting station, so you can start typing crafting station and we'll see it, right? You could do it right here if the ZNet scene is awake. Again, that's going to be the Valheim know-hows. I would potentially either, if it's in the piece manager, is in class form, I would do it there, or I would do a completely separate Harmony patch, which I'll do in a different video and show you how to do all that, set things up if you were to do it on your own. But for now, this is all I want. I'm ready. So I'm hitting the shortcut. I'm hitting Control-Shift-B to build my project. Again, that's going to build up at the top. And build succeeded, right? I'm going to right-click, Show in Explorer, and I believe it's Find in File Explorer or something like that in Visual Studio. I'm going to go to my bin folder, debug in this case, because I built it as debug, which we can see in the top right. And we have tutorialmod.dll. And if we hover it, we can see that the company says Azimat. The file version matches our version, which is 1.0.0, and then tutorial door mod, of course, is the description. So we're going to close this out. We're actually ready to bring this into the game, right? So I use R2Modman, which does come from Thunderstore, which I showed you previously. You can create multiple different profiles. It keeps your default Valheim install very clean. I have this profile here that has a bunch of mods already on it. And matter of fact, it has an update. Look at that. So Potion Plus has an update for me. I'll just update that real quick. Go into Settings, Browse Profile Folder, BepInEx, Plugins. And keep in mind, this is in very similar structure to what we had in the default Valheim install folder when we installed BepInEx. BepInEx is a requirement. R2 installs it for you in its own special place. Okay, so BepInEx configuration files will be found in configs. Patcher plugins need to be put in patchers. HookGen Patcher is one of those. Valheim Minus is one of those. So plugins, they can be nested in folders if the mod allows, of course. If they don't allow, it needs to be in a specific structure. R2Modman typically tends to handle that very well as long as the author has bundled it up correctly. So I am going to, in my other file explorer where my DLL is, I'm going to drag and drop that into my plugins. Okay, and you can put this in the default Valheim install and launch from there, but keep in mind, the moment that you start tainting that folder, the more likely that you're going to start having conflicts and issues that might not even be really related to your mod. So I'm going to launch this, and I'm going to show you what our build piece looks like in game. As I've mentioned previously, we didn't fix all of our shaders. We didn't set things up correctly and make it look all nice and pretty, and we took like 5 minutes with it. We didn't spend time. We didn't fix the shaders. We didn't make them look, the building effects and stuff like that look pretty. That takes time. Okay, so make sure you configure that. Play around with it. Do your own testing. Set things up. I'm not here to show you absolutely everything. Obviously, if you have questions, you can ask anyone in Odin Plus or any other mod dev, or even message me directly on Discord. I'm Azimat #2625. So You can reach me that way. If we go into Valheim and we boot our game up, once we get to the main menu, I will do a test and I'll go into my default world. And if you have BepInEx, it will launch a window like this that will show you any vanilla errors as well as, and this is just testing mod, don't worry about that, that's not actual real errors, as it says, testing material replacer. So errors will show up in red. There's a reason why I left this here. Default Valheim logs like Dungeon DB start, a few other things. Warnings from mods. It's warning me that if I was trying to join a multiplayer server right now, I could not. So we'll be able to see all the stuff like that. Now, I have a few mods that allow me to quickly go into debug mode, and I don't have to open the console, which is F5, by the way. I don't have to open the console. I don't have to type in any commands. I can just go here and say debug mode, God, no placement cost, so I can very quickly not need to touch the requirements for our item. And as we can see in MISC, we have our door. We have a tutorial door. It uses the same icon as the other one, so keep in mind your icon should show here. We can see that it takes the 20 fine wood and the 20 circling cores like we had. We can see that we can spin it, does all the things, and when we build it, because we fixed that place effect shader and all that, we can now snap it, look, and set this up, and as you can see, because we didn't configure our snap points, this doesn't actually work. It takes more effort, right? This is a custom piece. This isn't a normal door. But if we were to go to a normal door, and I put mine in miscellaneous for a reason, but if we were to go to a normal door or the normal dark wood gate, right, it still wouldn't attach. That's because in Unity, we needed to set up those snap points that I mentioned, which will be potentially a different tutorial some other day. But look, our build piece is in game. We have it. Piece Manager made that super simple. I can sit here and build and build and build. I can destroy. And right there, those white particles are a shader that we forgot to fix. And we have all of our items. Right? Look at that. It's in game. We're done. We have a piece. All the way from coding to in-game. So I will be creating more tutorials that'll tell you how to actually do things yourself, how to use more of the piece managers, how to set things up and bring in different assets. Feel free to leave a comment at the bottom and say, hey, we need to know how to do this. Can you do a tutorial on that? And just let me know. There's few people that can do more things than me, but hopefully that kind of gives you a general idea. See you guys again.